Kael smiled, gripping his sword in one hand, his gaze sharp as the blade. A cold gleam flickered in Yonglin's eyes, his voice cruel. "Today, you die." "Is that so?" Kael's smile didn't waver. "But your life, I'll be taking that later. I have other uses for it." "Surround him," Yonglin barked. The lackeys trembled inwardly, knowing they stood no chance. They could only steel their nerves and tighten the ring. Kael sighed. "You still haven't grasped one simple truth, no matter how many cannon fodder you throw at me." Boom! Before he finished, a muffled, thunderous rumble erupted from Kael's body. The sound rolled through him, the air humming with vibrations, and his cultivation base soared without restraint to the spirit mystic second stage realm. Yonglin's and Meng Shing's pupils constricted sharply. How was this possible? Barely half a day ago, he was still at origin gathering ninth layer. "Today, I'll use you to whet my sword." Kael said nothing more, slowly raising his longsword. Kai poured into the blade like a river, then he swept it down gently. 20, one streams of prime arrival, sword Kai tore through the air in an instant, their piercing shrieks nearly bursting eardrums. Silver-white streaks of light howled in all directions like bolts of lightning. The three men opposite didn't even have time to register terror before their protective spirit light was pierced through. The moment the sword light sank into their brows, 3 bursts of blood mist exploded with a wet pop. Their bodies hurtled backward, crashing heavily to the ground, already dead. The remaining 4 were drenched in cold sweat, their reckless death defying ferocity doused by more than half. They thought they could at least hold him off for a few moments. But just as that thought formed, the sword light blazed to life before their eyes again, words of surrender caught in their throats. A head flew skyward. "Run, run." The last 3 finally broke, turning to flee in utter panic. Kael's figure flashed after them, and amid the rise and fall of sword light, the screams died one by one. Yonglin and Meng Shing exchanged a glance, their gazes grave yet flickering with a hint of relief. Kael fought with sweeping, unrestrained strokes, caring only for slaughter and not for Kai expenditure. Prime arrival sword Kai was terrifying, but squandering it so recklessly could not last long. "Yana Murong isn't here. This is our chance to take him down one at a time." An inky green aura churned around Yonglin once again. Meng Shing nodded, the silver light blazing ever brighter around him. In the instant Kael struck down the last man and his guard was at its lowest, Meng Shing exploded into motion, his fists shining like falling stars as he hammered straight for Kael's back. Lightning, fast, Kael twisted around and brought his sword across. Clang! Metal met metal, sparks spraying like a silver rain. Kael was hurled back over Tenjiang, his feet plowing 2 deep furrows into the blood, red soil. Even with the treasure armor absorbing 50% of the force, the blood and Kai in his chest still churned. Meng Shing, on the other hand, had both fists dripping blood, a sickening crack ringing out from his knuckles. The finger bones, hard as profound artifacts, had split open with several fissures. A treasure body, Kael's tone dripped with mockery. That's all it amounts to. Meng Shing's face was ashen, and he said nothing. Yonglin streaked to Meng Shing's side and murmured, "Be careful. That sword is far more than it seems. After he dies, the sword is ours." Meng Shing stared at the rust-pitted longsword in Kael's hand, his gaze burning. That clash had taught him its essence. The blade looked like scrap, but its hardness was monstrous. Kael raised his sword once more, dividing the spoils already. "You really think you've got me cornered?" His words were still hanging in the air when the Kai inside him surged again. Sword light unfurled as another 20. 1 streams of prime arrival. Sword Kai shot straight for Meng Shing, while Kael himself flashed forward, charging directly at Yonglin. Meng Shing gritted his teeth, silver light blazing from both arms. Instead of retreating, he advanced, swinging his arms to meet the sword Kai head on. Clang, clang, clang. A string of metallic impacts rang out. Meng Shing's legs kept sliding backward, 2 deep furrows carving into the blood, red soil. With a final furious roar, silver radiance erupted as he shattered the last stream of sword Kai, but over a dozen gashes now crisscrossed his arms, and faintly silver bones were visible beneath. Meanwhile, on the other side, Kael's sword Kai forced Yonglin into a continuous retreat. Kael slashed relentlessly, prime arrival sword Kai raining down like a gale, while Yonglin could only dodge and parry, looking utterly disheveled and desperate. "You seem weaker," Kael frowned slightly. Yonglin's face darkened, and he said nothing. His storage ring had long been taken by Kael, and his prized twin spears were now on Kael's person. Without an offensive profound artifact, and lacking a treasure body like Meng Shing, Yonglin dared not confront that sword Kai directly. More importantly, with scarcely any pills left, He didn't dare stake everything on one desperate move.
Kael suddenly laughed. I get it now. That pair of twin spears is really quite fine. Should fetch a good price at Rui Pavilion.
Yonglin's eyes instantly turned blood red. If word got out that Yonglin, the esteemed Yongjai young lord, had his profound artifact stolen and then sold, he would become the biggest laughingstock in the entire northern territory of the eastern wastes.
You wouldn't dare.
Rage completely shattered his reason. Yonglin abandoned all concern for Kai consumption, and his aura erupted in full.
Thick, dark, green poison mist squirmed and spread like a living thing, surging outward to 3 zhang in the blink of an eye, engulfing Kael in its cloying presence. Kael's brow furrowed, threads of the toxic mist seeped into his pores, a faint prickling numbness spreading across his skin. But before Kael could even examine it, countless vortices of starlight in his meridians began revolving on their own, instantly refining the poison into nothingness, simultaneously producing a minuscule boost to his cultivation. Kael's expression turned speechless.
Yonglin grinned savagely. In the end, you'll still die by my hand.
His mutated azure wood spirit body imbued his Kai with a hidden, violent poison that he normally never revealed.
Today, it was his killing stroke.
I think, Kael said, his face a mask of strange amusement as he slowly raised his sword, you're celebrating a bit too early.
Empty boasting, Yonglin advanced with supreme confidence.
Kael sighed, then I'd better thank you properly.
With those words, his longsword cleaved downward.
In the dazzling, point-blank light, prime arrival sword Kai ripped through the air. With a succession of wet pops, over a dozen bloody holes burst open across Yonglin's body, his protective spirit light trembling violently on the verge of shattering. Impossible, Yonglin stared fixedly at Kael. This venom of mine, even an air-stepping realm would be affected. You. I already told you, Kael advanced sword in hand. The tip quivered, a 3-inch sword ray suddenly lancing forth the sword of slaying. Yonglin's pupils constricted. Even at his peak, he had dreaded that strike, let alone now.
Brother Meng, help me, Yonglin roared.
Goom! A tyrannical Kai blasted in from behind, wind howling. Before the blow even landed, Kael's robes were pressed tight against his body.
Die!
Meng Shing had already closed within 10 zhang.
The killing intent inside Kael exploded outward. He spun and thrust his sword to meet the attack.
In that split second, the two figures slammed together. Meng Shing's hands blazed with silver radiance, somehow clamping the sword of slaying between his palms.
Kryak.
A tooth-aching, tearing screech rang out harshly. The blade bit into his finger bones, silvery bone splinters peeling back. A third of the knuckle had been cleaved through.
Not bad. Meng Shing glared at Kael. Pity, not enough.
Not enough?
Kael's killing intent surged again, his sword momentum swelling viciously by 3/10. The blade crept forward, bones crackled without pause.
At that instant, Yonglin's attack arrived. Trapped in the pincer, no retreat remained. The dregs of cultivation within Kael erupted completely. He met Yonglin's strike with a palm. Brother Meng, help me, Yonglin shouted frantically. Meng Shing suddenly went feral. He loosened his grip, letting the longsword skewer him, and his palms flared silver. With crushing ferocity, they slammed into Kael's chest.
Bam!
A muffled thunderclap, the radiance. Engravings on Kael's treasure armor rippled out like waves. His whole body hurtled backward dozens of zhang. When he landed, his face was ghost, pale, a crimson mist spraying from his lips. Across the way, Meng Shing was also vomiting blood without stop. Shreds of killing intent and sword Kai rampaged inside him. Without his treasure body holding firm, that single blade would have crippled most of his battle strength. I'll give you credit. You have some skill. Meng Shing swayed to his feet. But today, the winners will still be us. Those words, Kael wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He already said. A gelid light flickered through Yonglin's eyes. Face death and still can't see it. That sword move of yours has impressive power, but the cost. You know it better than we do. Even with the duel, Pole Realm, your spirit energy can't be much by now. Kael fell silent a beat, a touch rueful. You even calculated that. As expected, you came prepared today.
Of course, the two crept closer. The secret realm's upheaval has come to this, yet you still fritter away spirit energy. Utterly fool.
Without haste, Kael withdrew a pill bottle and dumped it straight into his mouth. Return origin pill. Yonglin's and Meng Shing's pupils shrank. A stabbing pain twisted through their chests. Gone just like that. Kael tossed the bottle aside, his aura rocketed upward. One bottle of return origin pills can't save you. Yonglin exhaled a long breath.
He hadn't finished when Kael produced a second bottle and emptied it. Mystic Clarity Powder. Even pricier than Return Origin, pills by a sliver. Thanks for the reminder. Kael's face was dead serious, almost forgot. Pills matter in a secret realm. As he spoke, another bottle appeared in his hand. Pure Spirit Pill. Its value no less than the first two kinds. Enough. The two finally snapped. They had already counted those pills as their own. Watching Kael tip bottle after bottle into his mouth flayed their hearts like a carving knife. Asterisk boom asterisk. Red-eyed, the pair charged in shoulder to shoulder. Dozens of ribbons of prime arrival, Sword Kai met them. Medicinal power detonated inside Kael's body, a bittersweet herbal tang coiling across his tongue before dissolving into a surging spiritual tide. His sword sealed off both their offensives in one sweep. Wait a moment, Kael's expression never wavered. I need to recover my cultivation first. With that, he produced 7 or 8 more bottles in rapid succession. Heedless of grade, ignoring effect, he poured them all into his mouth at once. Stop. That's mine. Yonglin and Meng Shing's hearts bled. Eyes bloodshot, they lunged forward like madmen. Perfect timing. His Kai now nearly full, Kael raised his sword and met the two head on. Boom, boom. Kael's blade clashed violently with Meng Shing's fist force. Shockwaves exploded, gravel spraying everywhere. The three figures tangled, locked in a desperate deadlock. But as the fight dragged on, the scales tipped further. Kael's Kai reserves ran deep. He attacked without restraint, each streak of sword energy trailing a piercing shriek. Sweat and blood mist steamed into a sharp metallic reek that invaded the nostrils and clung to the throat. The web of his sword hand had gone numb, forearm muscles clenched like stone. His breathing was ragged and scorching, but his sword stance remained terrifyingly steady. Yonglin and Meng Shing, by contrast, were nearly tapped out. This should have been their advantage, 2 against 1. Instead, they found themselves driven back again and again. Sword light had grazed their vitals several times, nearly carving away half their lives. Bang! Another muffled impact. The two barely deflected a blow and shot backward. They couldn't give another step. One more meant death. Brother Yonglin, Meng Shing fixed his gaze on Kael, eyes gleaming with greed. Today, we have to take those spirit pills from him. Exactly. Yonglin glanced down at the several transparent holes punched through his own body, face dark. They'll all be ours. Pain aside, the two no longer hesitated. Each retrieved spirit pills and swallowed them in one gulp. Kill him, and we'll more than make up for the cost. 10 times over. Kill me, Kael sneered. Without looking closely, he produced several more bottles and emptied them into his mouth. 2 bottles, not enough. With a sudden bellow, he attacked again. Boom, boom. Sword Kai poured down in torrents. Fist force shattered. The whole area buzzed from the violent collisions. Unfortunately, the spiritual energy from 2 bottles couldn't sustain such high intensity slaughter. Before long, the two were again unable to hold out. A scream tore the air. Yonglin failed to dodge. His right arm was severed at the shoulder by Sword Kai. The severed artery sprayed blood with a sharp hiss, arcing high and scattering a scarlet mist. The limb thudded onto the gravel, rolling twice. Beside him, Meng Shing relied on his treasure body to tank the blows. Sword wounds crisscrossed his entire body, and beneath the gashes, silver treasure. Bone shone clear. But under the nearly endless prime arrival Sword Kai, he too found himself strangled, nearly breathless. Kael's own consumption ran even greater. He suddenly halted his assault. Under the two fighters' suspicious, wary gazes, he produced another 5 bottles of spirit pills and rattled them. Yonglin and Meng Shing's eyes twitched simultaneously. They nearly cursed aloud. How were they supposed to fight this? A war of attrition. They'd break first. The spirit elixirs on Kael's body seemed bottomless, enough to drag them to their deaths here. Their only shot at survival was to kill him instantly, leaving no gap for him to take more pills. But if they could have done that, they already would have. They exchanged a glance. The last shred of fighting spirit in their hearts crumbled. Don't worry. Kael seemed to read them perfectly, face earnest. These are the last 5 bottles, really. Like hell they'd believe that. Without a shred of hesitation, the two turned and fled in opposite directions. Kael's expression chilled. Run, did you ask me? Boom, his aura erupted. He flashed forward, going straight after Yonglin. Sensing the spiritual energy lock shift away from him, Meng Shing immediately split from Yonglin. Without looking back, he sprinted the other way. Brother Meng Shing, Yonglin's lungs nearly burst with fury. How could you?
The accusation never fully left his mouth. He knew the truth. They were only using each other. Meng Shing not kicking him while he was down was already something.
A fierce gale rushed at him from behind.
Damn.
His mind chilled. He barely twisted his body. Several streaks of sword Kai grazed his vitals, punching through his body once again.
With repeated heavy injuries and a missing arm, his speed faltered. Brother Meng Shing, his cry turned mournful, help me. In the distance, Meng Shing only ran faster.
Die?
A voice saturated with killing intent poured into his ears. The sword of slaying came again.
You want me dead. A flash of madness climbed into Yong Lin's eyes. Dream on. A dark green toxic mist churned out from his body.
Before it could fully erupt, a dull asterisk schlick asterisk sounded. Kael's longsword pierced straight through the mist and into his heart meridian.
A faint yet heavy throbbing transmitted along the blade, his heart struggling on the sword tip. The lingering force didn't diminish, pinning Yong Lin onto the crushed stone ground. Don't move. Kael stared down at him, expressionless. Move, and you really will die. Yong Lin's eyes went bloodshot. If you dare kill me, my Yongjaya family will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Kill you? Kael shook his head. I told you, I'm keeping your life. It's still useful.
As his words fell, several streams of sword Kai burrowed into Yong Lin's meridians, roaming and sealing them, leaving him just enough spiritual energy to barely maintain his protective spirit light.
Yong Lin stared at him fiercely. What exactly do you want? Young lord of the Yongjaya, chief disciple of Chi Yuan, born with a mutated greenwood spirit body, Kael glanced at him sidelong. Any one of those identities is worth a lot.
You plan to take me and blackmail them.
I wouldn't call it blackmail. I just want to trade for a person.
Who?
Relax, Kael smiled. Someone utterly insignificant to you, this deal. Your Yongjaya family comes out way ahead.
Insignificant. Yong Lin fell silent a moment. Something clicked, and his tone turned mocking. This person, they're connected to that bastard breed. Asterisk thwack, asterisk.
Before the sentence finished, a flash of sword light passed before his eyes. His other arm flew off and hit the ground with a heavy thud.
He endured the searing pain, glaring death at Kael.
It's nothing. Kael's sword hand remained perfectly steady. Smiling warmly, he said, your tone just now really pissed me off. Reminded me of my fine eldest brother Jiang. You're playing with fire. The venom in Yong Lin's eyes almost congealed. It's a path to death. Don't think just because Zhuo Yong protects you that you can.
Asterisk swish, asterisk. A streak of sword light shot past his ear, drilling a deep hole in the ground.
Kael smiled benignly. Yong Lin, you've forgotten your place. You're just my bargaining chip now. A prisoner should have a prisoner's awareness. Always putting on that lofty, superior air that azure wood spirit body of yours, pretty good recovery power, right? As he spoke, his longsword slowly shifted, aiming at Yong Lin's legs.
Yong Lin's face twisted dramatically. He didn't dare speak another word. He understood Kael couldn't care less about his background.
Though death wasn't on the line, endless broken limbs, no matter how strong his spirit body's self-healing, it couldn't endure this kind of torment. Rumbled, rumbled.
The earth beneath their feet suddenly trembled lightly. In the distance, the crimson mist rolled like a startled tide, twisting and surging toward them. A rough female voice pierced through, striding with clear spatial orientation.
Aya, you let go of me.
Shut up. You're so slow. What if you delay me from saving Brother Kael?
AI, if I'd known, I would have left some people behind. It's fine, he acts with considerable method. Even if he couldn't match them, it shouldn't be anything serious.
It was Yana Murong's group. Kael grabbed Yong Lin by the shoulder and hoisted him up. Let's go meet them. Right, you'd better rein in that stinking temper. My big sis Yana Murong isn't as easy to talk to as I am. In that instant, Yong Lin's face turned the color of dead ash, the light in his pupils scattering. Everyone surged forward, the blood. Soaked earth had been gouged open, shredded remains lay scattered across charred furrows. A thick iron stench mixed with the lingering turbulence of spiritual energy, making the air shimmer faintly. Seeing the corpses and devastation, their hearts plummeted.
Nero's Shanks's expression turned grim. Got here too late.
Yana Murong's eyes went red. She glared at GSH, Wan, still hoisted in her grip. Why didn't you warn us sooner?
GSH. Wan looked on the verge of tears. I ran as fast as I could. No need to worry. Kael's figure emerged from the distance. I'm fine.
Everyone's gaze snapped to the half. Dead person he carried. Yong Lin, they all stood frozen. What was happening?
It didn't match the scene they'd imagined at all.
Didn't I tell you? Kael glanced at GSH, Wan, still dangling from Yana Murong's hold, and shook his head.
Not to leave. Seeing Kael unharmed, relief washed over GSH. One small face. I knew I'd only slow you down, so I went to get reinforcements. Kael looked genuinely surprised. You actually have some brains. Of course, GSH. Wan beamed with pride. I'm very clever. Hey, hurry and put me down. Yana Murong tossed her aside without ceremony. Brother Kael. Her gaze locked on Yonglin. What exactly happened here? Brother Ivan. Instead of answering, Kael looked at the puzzled Ivan and suddenly smiled. I'm giving you a big gift. With that, he hurled Yonglin to the ground at Ivan's feet. The heavy body smacked the earth, raising a whisper of dust with a dull thud. Ivan looked down, his fingers trembled almost imperceptibly, and his Adam's apple slowly bobbed. Impressive. After hearing Kael's account, Yana Murong gave him a thumbs up. Too impressive. She had assumed that facing so many attackers, plus formidable opponents like Yonglin and Meng Shing, Kael would be lucky just to escape. She never imagined he'd turned the tables, slaughtered his attackers, captured Yonglin alive, and scared off Meng Shing. He'd delivered a heaven-shaking surprise. That kind of battle record, Nero's Shanks said, full of emotion, is enough to look down on the entire northern territory of the eastern wastes. To think, in just half a day apart, your cultivation had who would believe it if we told them. Honestly, Kael remained quite clear-headed. I only took advantage of having a lot of spirit pills. Out in the open, the outcome might have been different. It's a shame. Such a good opportunity, but I let Meng Shing escape. That so-called treasure body of his is truly far more troublesome than Yonglin's. Tesk, Yana Murong glanced at Yonglin, a trace of sympathy flickering in her eyes. He ran into you, how pitiful. Nero's Shanks deeply agreed, truly pitiful. In truth, it wasn't that Yonglin was weak. His mutated azure wood spirit body was exceptionally rare, and the deadly poison lacing his spiritual energy was naturally extraordinary. Against any one of them, even Yana Murong, a moment of carelessness would have meant falling victim to his trap. Unfortunately, he met Kael. A poison master just happened to run into the 100, venom immunity physique. The moment he played his trump card, it became useless, completely restrained. One could only say Yonglin had the worst luck in 8 lifetimes. This favor, Ivan, who had been silent since entering the cave, finally spoke, is far too heavy. He already understood what Kael intended to do. Exchange Yonglin for his mother. This way, he sighed, your situation will become even worse. Brother Ivan, Kael shook his head. You witnessed everything inside the secret realm. Even if I hadn't captured him, the young Jaya would still want me dead above all else. The outcome would be no different. No matter how bad my position gets, it can't get much worse. So why should I keep enduring and yielding to them? He spread his hands with a helpless expression. What, do you expect me to kneel and beg their forgiveness? What? Yana Murong shouted. That kind of thing? Absolutely not. Exactly. Nero's Shanks nodded. Knowing the nature of those two families, the more you show weakness, the more they will bully you. Kael was speechless. He'd only been making a comparison, and these two had actually taken it seriously. Deep kindness. After a moment of silence, Ivan bowed deeply to Kael. No words can express my thanks. Kael reached out to support him and smoothly shifted the topic. All right, I'm going to check the Secret Realm Center. There might still be some treasured elixir left in that spring. His voice was calm. Yana Murong and Nero's Shanks' expressions instantly froze. They exchanged a glance, and undeniable shock exploded in their eyes simultaneously. In the small valley, when Meng Shing was led back by Wang Zhai, his body was stained with blood. His haggard face looked like he'd just crawled out of a grave. Yuan Gang raised an eyebrow and scrutinized him with a smirk. In just this short time, Brother Meng has become quite a bit more weary. Meng Shing's expression went blank. He turned to leave. If you called me here just to mock me, then I'm leaving. Brother Meng, wait. Chu Kuang slowly stood, his tone unhurried. My senior brother meant no ill will, otherwise I wouldn't have given you that heavenly origin pill. I asked you here for another matter. Meng Shing halted. Chu Kuang instead looked at Wang Zhai. Senior brother, didn't I ask you to bring everyone? Why is only brother Meng here? Wang Zhai hesitated, wanting to speak, but Meng Shing answered flatly. I'm the only one. The rest are all dead. Everyone's hearts jolted. In such a short time, all dead. What about Yonglin? Yuan Gang's brows furrowed deeply. Meng Shing shot him a glance. He's probably dead too. Chu Kuang's brows knitted. His voice carried a thin layer of frost. With your strength and Yonglin's, plus those blood pearls, not to mention Yana Murong, even those monsters couldn't touch you. How could he die? What exactly happened? Meng Shing remained silent.
How could he explain 12 men cornered one and were slaughtered instead, while he alone escaped alive? The words would burn his tongue.
Gang's eyes turned cold. Consider your situation. Your life is hanging by a thread, and you still put on the young lord's airs.
Enough.
Chu Kuang waved his hand, his voice still gentle. Since Brother Meng is unwilling to speak, I won't force it. The reason I asked you here is simple. Your treasure body. I've long heard of it. Seeing it today, it is indeed extraordinary. Why not join my command and serve me?
What do you say?
Dream on. Meng Shing turned and walked away.
Chu Kuang did not stop him. He casually withdrew a jade bottle. A light pull of the stopper, and a strand of clear yellow luminescence spilled from the bottle's mouth, spreading a ring of warm light through the scarlet mist. A subtle scent of grass and wood quietly dispersed, creeping straight into the nose. The heavenly origin pill lay at the bottom, round and lustrous like jade, as if holding a solidified bead of morning light. Meng Shing spun around abruptly, staring at the pill bottle, his pupils contracted sharply. His Adam's apple bobbed, his fists clenched, fine sweat oozed from his palms. Chu Kuang's tone was like warm water, slowly flooding over him. You must have noticed by now, the crimson mist is thickening. Alone, barring accidents, you won't last until the secret realm opens. In this secret realm, besides me, no one can save your life. I have many more of these pills, enough to keep you safe provided you agree to my terms, life or death.
Your choice.
Meng Shing said nothing, but the rims of his eyes slowly reddened. He believed it. Someone who could casually produce a heavenly origin pill would only have more on hand. Deep inside, he was already shaken, but that last shred of pride stuck in his throat like a thorn, making him unable to utter that word.
Chu Kuang didn't press him. He only watched quietly. In the valley, only the faint rustling of the churning crimson mist remained. After a long while, Meng Shing suddenly raised his head, his eyes bloodshot. Give me a reason I can convince myself with.
Life or pride, he chose the former. Gang waved a hand, and the others quietly withdrew. His voice was thick with emotion. The reason is simple. Junior Brother Chu is a saint reincarnate.
Meng Shing's expression convulsed.
In this world, there existed extremely rare geniuses born with memories of past lives. Their innate talent and cultivation speed left peers far behind. He had only heard of such things, never imagined the Chu Kuang before him was one, and a saint reincarnate at that. What was a saint after transcendent one entered sainthood? In the entire northern territory of the eastern wastes for 1,000 years, aside from the old ancestor of the Jade Pinnacle sect, the highest cultivation realm was only half. Transcendence, a legendary existence, like a saint, only existed in those hidden clans and sacred lands that seldom appeared. Ordinary cultivators could scarcely glimpse one in a lifetime.
These words, are they true? Meng Shing's voice trembled.
Chu Kuang smiled. An ancient majesty flickered across his eyes for an instant. The air suddenly congealed, as if an invisible giant hand clenched everything. Meng Shing felt his breath hitch. A chill crept down his spine. Proving my identity isn't difficult. We only need to wait until after we leave. The prerequisite is that you must make the right choice first to have the chance to see it.
I agree. Meng Shing had no more hesitation. Serving a saint reincarnate was a heaven-sent opportunity, not to mention he had no choice at this moment.
Good.
Chu Kuang tossed the pill bottle over, his voice flat but still carrying a shred of his former saint's authority.
This heavenly origin pill is yours. Serve me well from now on, and I'll grant you a great fortune. Of course, the prerequisite is that you don't betray me.
Since I dare reveal my identity openly, I'm not afraid of some half-step transcendence realm fools coming to cause trouble.
I won't.
Meng Shing's heart leaped. He had indeed been nursing that little thought. Now that it had been laid bare, he didn't dare let it linger. He clutched the bottle tight.
Gang sighed with feeling. Junior brother, if you'd revealed your identity to that Kael back then, subduing him would have been easy.
No, Chu Kuang shook his head. That day, Kael dared to challenge Zheng Ning at only the aperture, opening realm. I suspect my identity as a saint reincarnate wouldn't have impressed him much.
True, but I imagine he's already dead by Yong Lin's hand. Serves him right.
No. Meng Shing suddenly looked up. Kael is not dead.
What? Kael is not dead.
Meng Shing repeated himself, teeth grinding softly. The wound on his shoulder split open with a wet, sucking sound. The salty tang of blood dispersed through the crimson mist. He laid out the full account of recent events. By the end, deep wariness had pooled in his eyes.
That Kael, his progress is too fast, too terrifying, and he carries an absurd number of pills. It's like he came fully prepared. The smile vanished from Chu Kuang's face. His knuckles went white. The valley's air sank again. I never thought even the Blood Pearl couldn't handle him. I underestimated him in the end. This man must have opportunities beyond anything we imagined. Yuan Gang's face turned grave. He said nothing. Meng, Shing, and Chu Kuang exchanged a glance. Murder flickered in both their eyes at the same instant. If we can't use him, he'll turn into a disaster sooner or later. Chu Kuang thought for a moment, then nodded. Destroy him, then. Meng Shing's spirit lifted, then now. Not yet. Chu Kuang shook his head. There's something more urgent. The treasured elixir at the secret realm center. I need to make a trip there. With all these anomalies, it's hard to say if that elixir is even still there. We'll know when we see. Having lived twice, Chu Kuang made no effort to hide his ambition. He would seize every chance, forging an impeccable foundation of the way. Returning to the Saint Realm was only the beginning, shattering the shackles and pushing higher. That was his real goal. Yuan Gang wanted to go with him, but Chu Kuang stopped him. The deeper we go toward the center, the thicker the crimson mist gets. You won't make it to the end, senior brother. I have my own methods. He stepped forward, leaving only a few parting words. Rest, recover. When I return, it will be the day Kael meets his end. At the same time, inside the cave. Kael laid out his plan to investigate the treasured elixir at the center. Nero's Shanks and Yana Murong immediately tried to talk him down. Too dangerous, with these insane changes. Who knows if the elixir is even still there? Only Ivan stayed silent. Kael's eyes hardened. This crimson mist is a huge boon for cultivation, but it still can't compare to the treasured elixir. I have to go and see. The longer we wait, the worse our chances get. Realizing they couldn't sway him, Nero's Shanks and Yana Murong could only tell him to be careful, over and over again. Kael waved a hand and shot out of the cave. Yana Murong grew restless at once. She assigned Nero's Shanks to stay and guard the cave, while she took Ivan to keep searching for spirit herbs. Nero's Shanks choked. Why am I the one staying? You're fast. Yana Murong grabbed her hammer and left. When she met up with Murong Chong, she suddenly frowned. Why does it feel like we're missing someone? Murong Chong looked blank. Miss, you must be mistaken. It's always been just us few outside. Ivan nodded, too. Forget it. Yana Murong didn't waste more time. She hefted her heavy hammer. Let's go. At the small pool in the secret realm center, Nero's Junks sat cross-legged, eyes shut. Strand after strand of spiritual liquid flowed into his body and was slowly refined. His appearance had changed completely. His hair was jet black, his back straight. He looked like a youth again. Deep within the secret realm, the crimson mist thickened. Strands wove together into an unbroken sheet, steadily darkening to a deeper red, growing ever more uncanny. A figure moved through the haze, neither fast nor slow. It was Kael. He opened a tiny gap in his protective spirit light, deliberately guiding strands of crimson mist into his body to refine them. His cultivation built momentum, already brushing against the spirit profound third layer. Back in the outside world, such speed would have left people speechless. It only made him hunger more for the treasured elixir's effects. His steps halted, the ground started to tremble. Kael sighed inwardly. Asterisk, my luck really isn't great. Asterisk, boom. My God. Glory. Two roars ripped the long-standing stillness apart. A massively burly figure exploded through the layers of crimson mist, 4 arms hammering the ground. In a heartbeat, it pounced right in front of him. Kael swept his gaze over them, and his heart dropped. The two monsters had swollen a full size larger. Their 4 arms were freakishly thick. Muscles coiled and tightened. Bones crackled in a grinding chain. Every flex of those arms tore the stagnant air, sending low, humming booms thudding outward. Most of the chaos in their once muddled eyes had cleared, replaced by a glint of clarity. The intensifying crimson mist was evolving them. They'd already developed rudimentary intelligence. Defiling our god deserves death. The monster spat its first complete sentence. The vertical eye in its forehead snapped open, its blood, red hue deeper than before. Asterisk, not good. Asterisk. Kael dodged on instinct. Boom, boom. 2 beams of destructive red light blasted the ground into deep craters, flinging shattered soil everywhere. The god's power will not be defiled. The 2 monsters slammed their thick arms down and lunged at him from left and right. Their strength was only a hair weaker than Yonglin or Meng Shing, but without the problem of running out of spirit pills, the threat was immense. Kael's expression turned grim. He swung his longsword in a sweeping arc. 21 streaks of prime arrival, sword Kai-Tor through the air, pinning the left monster in place. At the same time, he shifted his body, killing intent surging. A 3-inch gleam bloomed at his sword tip as he thrust straight for the right monster's vertical eye. The monster raised a huge palm to block. Die. The sword of slaying accelerated mid-thrust. Splurt. The tip punched through the palm with a muffled, fleshy sound, dragging a spray of viscous blood mist. Its momentum intact, it drove deep into that vertical eye. The monster shrieked, its massive body quaking violently, then crashed down with a thunderous boom completely still. But the other monster abandoned all resistance and dropped to its knees. "God, my God," it muttered in supplication. The crimson mist in the air suddenly erupted, turning into a vortex that poured furiously into its body. The airflow screamed. The blood-soaked earth trembled, its muscles swelled and coiled again, its bones cracking into an unbroken chain of sound. The muffled thuds of its 4 thick arms tearing the air grew heavier. A vertical eye opened, the blood light inside so dense it seemed about to drip. Kael yanked his sword free and whirled, slashing at its neck. Clang! The longsword bit 3/10 of an inch into the flesh and stopped, clamped tight by swollen muscle. On its remaining head, the vertical eye suddenly flared, a beam of destructive red light erupted. The air warped from the searing heat, a wave of scorching air hammering his face. Kael raised his sword horizontally to block. The web between his thumb and forefinger split. His treasure armor's protective spirit light shuddered violently, flickering like a candle in a gale. A sweet taste crawled up his throat. His whole body was blasted backward. The sound of bones snapping, inch by inch, exploded inside him. His organs ached as if pounded by a red, hot hammer. He forced the last of his spirit light to hold and fled. Every step came with ragged heaving. Blood mist sprayed from his mouth, cutting brief, glaring arcs through the crimson mist. His footsteps staggered, not daring to pause even for a heartbeat. Defiling our god deserves death. The monster's intelligence sharpened further, its speech no longer clumsy, but cold and indifferent. One push of its huge hands, it covered over 10 zhang in an instant, hot on Kael's trail. Miles away, within layers of thick crimson mist, Chu Kuang strolled as if wandering a peaceful garden. No protective spirit light shrouded him, only a faint shimmer wrapped tight around his body, blocking the crimson mist completely. Right now, Chu Kuang mused, besides the divine quintessence, there are 2 other fortunes, the mystic elixir pavilion and the saint selection of myriad transformations holy land. At the mention of the former, he frowned slightly. The mystic elixir pavilion's emergence is unpredictable. I'll set it aside for now. The latter, forget it. With my strength not yet restored, I'll have to swallow my pride. Old fool of myriad transformations, you'll be getting a huge bargain with me as your saint. His expression gradually hardened. HMPH. Once I advance a step further and unify the eastern wastelands, I'll storm that forbidden land and repay that sword strike. The gods, slaying formation. The formation you passed down ended up becoming my fortune. I bet you never imagined that. A guttural, muffled howl tore through the air. Chu Kuang's brow furrowed, his gaze dark. Whoever you are, my fortunes aren't for you to covet. His speed surged, and in a blink, he vanished. Kael wiped blood from the corner of his mouth. A roar echoed behind him, his expression grim. The monster's evolution had surpassed all expectations worse. They were regaining intelligence. That was the real threat. The longer they dragged on, the more desperate everyone's position became. Kael could only pin his hopes on the treasured elixir. If all their cultivations broke through in unison, there might be a sliver of hope. Ignoring his internal injuries, he forced his speed even higher. Already over half the journey done, he pushed with everything. Before long, he reached the secret realm center. The familiar aura of the treasured elixir surfaced again. He pushed through the crimson mist's blockade and arrived at the ultimate place of fortune, yet the sight before him made Kael freeze. Above a small pool hung a transparent barrier, like glazed glass, completely isolating the dense crimson. The treasured elixir within the pool had transformed into a misty spirit fog, faintly shimmering with fragmented 7-colored crystal motes. At the pool's heart, a slightly plump young man sat cross-legged, the spirit fog flowing ceaselessly into his body. This person was naturally Nero's Jonks. With his temperament, he couldn't be bothered about the secret realm's upheaval, though he'd known all along that the upheaval started because of him. Nero's Jonks seemed to sense the commotion outside and slowly opened his eyes. In that instant, the spirit fog inside the pool seemed to congeal. Nero's Jonks' gaze pierced through the crimson mist and landed on Kael, making his skin prickle with danger. Both froze you. The plump man said at the same moment. Kael demanded, "Who are you?" Kael kept his guard up. "You know me." The man before him felt more dangerous than the mutated monster chasing behind. Nero's Jonks looked himself over, quite satisfied. Such a huge change. No wonder you can't recognize me, as it should be. Kael ignored him and stared at the pool. Only a shallow layer of treasured elixir remained. A pang hit his chest. This treasured elixirs. Mine. Nero's Jonks' expression turned solemn. This item is fated with me. Kael was speechless. This man's way of speaking always made people want to punch him. Tusk, Nero's junk slowly rose, his face full of wistfulness. I thought you'd all be trapped in the outskirts given your strength, yet you actually made it here. Little fellow, you never cease surprising me. I keep feeling, Kael frowned, that I've seen you before. Don't ponder it. The great Tao moves in vast, boundless mystery. Every meeting between us is predestined. If you dig for explanations, that would be falling into. It's you. That tone, it was too familiar. In Kael's mind, two figures instantly overlapped, the infuriating smile of the fortune teller from Yuishan City, and the lazy shadow of the old sweeper from Valor Hall. The man in Yuishan City was you, and the old sweeper at Great Kai Martial Academy, that was you too. Clever, Nero's junks gazed at him full of praise, truly clever. Kael blinked, clever, with the way Nero's junks talked, anyone could pick him out. It had nothing to do with looks, his bearing was simply too distinctive. You are indeed a talent. Nero's junks continued, undeterred. You reached the extreme realm, defeated Brand, killed Nero Ya. For revenge, you threw the imperial capital into chaos. Outside Rui Pavilion, you crippled Yongfei and ground the faces of the Yong and Meng families under your heel. In the northern territory of the eastern wastes, except for Luo Washwang, none can stand above you. Kael cut off Nero's junks' musings, his expression tightening. You seem to know me rather well. I never saw you when I entered the secret realm. How did you get here? It's not that I made an effort to pay attention. Nero's junks waved a hand, his voice tinged with a sigh. It's just that your radiance is too great to conceal. As for who I am, my surname is Jiang. Those of the great Kai royal house should call me Old Ancestor. Kael's pupils abruptly constricted, Kai stirring around him, the great Kai, progenitor emperor. Relax, I didn't come here for revenge. As for those worthless descendants, if they all died, I wouldn't feel a shred of pity. As for how I got in, Nero's junks' gaze deepened, his smile light. Naturally, I have my own methods. I promised someone, so it's not convenient to elaborate. Kael said nothing, only stared. Nero's junks answered every question, almost disconcertingly candid. Any more questions? Nero's junks' expression was amiable. I have no other faults. I'm just chatty. Ask whatever you want. Because once you've breathed your last, there will be no more chances. Kael's breath caught. You want to kill me. Correct. You said you weren't seeking revenge. It has nothing to do with that. You also said, Kael's voice turned bitter, that I'm astonishingly talented, comparable to Luo Washwang. Yes, Nero's junks' eyes showed regret. I've always cherished talent. For someone like you to die at my hands truly weighs on my conscience. So I'm granting you this courtesy, to let you die understanding why. Kael's chest tightened. A courtesy? What kind of courtesy was this? He drew a deep breath. The reason. Nero's junks pointed at the treasured elixir, rippling in the small pool. Whether intentional or not, since you've stumbled upon my secret, I have no choice but to silence you. If those old fellows learned that their most valued juniors were all lost in the secret realm because of me, they would hunt me to the ends of the earth. Nero's junks knew the ins and outs of the anomalies in the secret realm perfectly. Kael sighed softly. So, the anomalies in this secret realm, you caused them all. Smart. The regret in Nero's junks' eyes deepened. If only you had stayed obediently in the outer area instead of running around, you would have avoided this death tribulation today. I truly cannot bear to harm you. Hide and wait to die. Dying later is always better than dying right now, Nero's junks said with a faint smile. Kael was silent for a moment. Then, how do you plan to leave? Kael understood that since Nero's junks had infiltrated this place, he must have a hidden exit. Nero's junks looked at him with a half-smile. You don't think you still have a chance to leave, do you? Just asking. You promised to let me die understanding. Don't get clever ideas. Nero's junks shook his head. Even if I told you the method with your cultivation, you couldn't leave. Playing these tricks is dull. My patience is limited. His tone already betrayed impatience. One last question. Kael didn't press further. What use is this treasured elixir to you? I've seen you 3 times, and each time you wore a different face. Why? Nero's junks' expression abruptly turned distant. A flash of deep, seated resentment flickered in the depths of his eyes, and the spiritual mist over the pool churned in response. It can only be said that fate plays cruel tricks. Nero's junks slowly began. Over 100 years ago, I was the most dazzling genius in the northern territory of the eastern wastes among my peers. The likes of Yongshang and Meng Shing weren't even worth mentioning before me. Back then, my ambitions were sky high. I looked down on the Jade Pinnacle Sect's invitation and was determined to fight for the position of Holy Son in the sacred land. Unfortunately, a low, hoarse sigh escaped Nero's Junks's throat, as if he had returned to that moment of defeat. The humiliation when the Holy Sun struggle was settled still made the spiritual mist over the pool stir restlessly, like ripples from an invisible hand. My skill didn't measure up. I lost. After I returned, I joined the Jade Pinnacle Sect, established the Grand Kai Empire, and took on the duty of guarding the god, slaying formation's array God, slaying formation, Kael's heart stirred. 1,000 years ago, beyond the heavens, a great battle occurred, and a giant that called itself a god fell. One piece of its corpse crashed into the northern territory of the eastern wastes, causing immense chaos, and even the founding patriarch of the Jade Pinnacle Sect indirectly perished because of it. Later, a formation emerged from deep within the Forbidden Zone to seal it. That is the god, slaying formation. Nero's Junks raised a hand, gesturing at the crimson mist pervading the area. This power is entirely different from Cultivator's Kai. I call it divine power. You've experienced its might firsthand. He then gestured at the pool, and it's a trace of divine quintessence refined by the god, slaying formation after it processed the divine power. Its effects far surpass your imagination. Mid-sentence, Nero's Junks' expression flickered with surprise. You don't seem surprised at all. A man about to die. What is there to be surprised about? Kael shook his head. Truth be told, aside from the god, slaying formation, Kael had known more about the so-called god, and far earlier than Nero's Junks ever had. Kael pressed on. The way you looked before, was that also because of the divine power? Correct. Nero's Junks harbored no suspicion, already sinking into memory. Who wouldn't be obsessed with that kind of power? Decades ago, I had already passed the ninefold Earth tribulation and stood with one foot in the transcendent realm. But the higher I climbed, the less I could stomach that past defeat, so I entertained the thought of using divine power. He stopped short, as if plunged once more into the agony of that divine force invading his body. The phantom pain of meridians tearing inch by inch, his foundation pulverized by the raging energy, made his fingers spasm against his knee. Unfortunately, it was never something we could control. An accident occurred when I tried to channel the divine power into my body. By sheer luck, I didn't become one of those monsters, but my foundation was obliterated, and my flesh body withered. I wound up with that wretched appearance. A deep remorse and anguish surfaced in Nero's Junks' eyes. At the time, I regretted it more than words can say. With my talent, even if I couldn't become the Holy Sun, I could have been a formidable overlord. That's when I truly understood. I had to live. Forget the Holy Sun dynasty, my descendants, glory, and achievements, none of it holds a candle to simply being alive. This divine quintessence became my only hope. The treasured elixir in the pool rippled faintly, its reflected light gliding across Nero's Junks' face like water. For one fleeting moment, a ghostly afterimage of his features seemed to shift from decay to wholeness. I concealed my name, swallowed humiliation for decades, plotted for decades, all waiting for this chance. Now that I've recovered naturally, I will start anew. So I don't want any loose ends. Nero's Junks fixed his eyes on Kael. This is why you must die. Inside this secret realm, everyone who has seen my current face must die. Actually, Kael let out a soft sigh. Even if you don't kill me, once those monsters fully mature, I still won't survive. No, Nero's Junks smiled. He smiled, but his tone dropped into something cold. You say you accept your fate, yet you're still scheming against me in your heart. Kael's expression stayed calm. You're overthinking it. I know. Nero's Junks pointed into the distance. You've been stalling for time. Coincidentally, I've been stifled for decades, so I played along and exchanged a few words with you. Feeling relieved now? Relieved, Nero's Junks exhaled in satisfaction. Today is the day I rise again, and the day you fall. That think it has already arrived. The ground shuddered. The monster Kael had shaken off, caught up. Its body had swollen even larger, the spiritual light in its eyes sharper and more savage. The instant it appeared, it locked onto Nero's Junks in the pool. Its frigid gaze erupted with fury. Blasphemy against the divine death. The vertical eye snapped open. A thick, ruinous red beam tore forward, searing the air with a violent hiss, punching a clean vacuum channel straight through the crimson mist. Battle intent blazed in Nero's Junks' eyes. Fine, for my first battle, you'll be my whetstone. Half-step transcendent might erupted from him. The spiritual light at the edge of his palm split the crimson mist like a blade. With a flip of his hand, he met the red beam head on. Boy, watch closely. Nero's Junks shot a glance at Kael. The difference between a genius of the past and a so-called genius of today. Kael had already pushed his movement technique to its limit and bolted. Watch who had the lifespan for that. Boom! The palm light collided with the red beam. Nero's junks didn't fall back a single step. He advanced against the light and slammed a vicious palm onto the monster's forehead. A muffled explosion followed. Cracking bone and splattering fluids mixed into one wet, grinding sound. The vertical eye shattered to pieces. The surrounding crimson mist was blasted clean by the shockwave. The monster's massive body crashed heavily to the ground, the spiritual light in its eyes dying out fast. Blasphemer, my God, will punish. Its words never finished. Its life force was already severed. Nero's junks glanced at his own charred palm and spoke coolly. Self-proclaimed God, your strength is indeed extraordinary. A pity you were eventually dismembered. The name God doesn't live up to reality. He didn't spare the corpse another look. Hands clasped behind his back, he gazed in the direction Kael had fled. A single step, and his figure was already 100 zhang away. Several li away, Chu Kuang sensed the violent clash in the distance. His brow furrowed, then smoothed out. So it's him, since he delivered himself to my doorstep. It saves me the trouble. I'll deal with you first, then take that opportunity. Kael's entire body blazed with spiritual light as he pushed his speed to the brink. The red soil detonated under his feet, each step branding a stark, bloody footprint into the ground. He knew Nero's junks wouldn't take long to finish off the monster. This brief window was his sole chance at living. Gritting his teeth, he overloaded his body, coughing up a mouthful of blood he couldn't stifle as he fled. Then Kael came to an abrupt halt. Ahead, the crimson mist churned, and a figure stood there in perfect stillness. Chu Kuang. So it really is you. Chu Kuang sighed with a smile. You're truly capable. You really do know how to surprise me. Kael wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He was no longer in a hurry. Same to you. You know how to surprise me too. You're badly injured. Chu Kuang raised an eyebrow. That monster evolved faster than I expected. You're outstanding, but too arrogant and too greedy. This opportunity doesn't belong to you. Your opportunity is right ahead. No one's stopping you. No rush. We're so close now. That thing is already in my bag. Before that, Chu Kuang paused. The dim light behind him slowly receded, replaced by a shapeless, invisible maw gradually yawning open. The surrounding crimson mist was sucked in like a whale drawing water, releasing hollow howls. Points of baleful light peeled off Chu Kuang's body and coalesced into a phantom of fangs. Let's settle matters between us first. You want to fight? Kael frowned slightly. We have no personal grudge, but you're too outstanding. Yonglin's blood pearl couldn't kill you, and when Meng Shing and the others ganged up, you slaughtered them until only he remained. You make me feel threatened. Meng Shing is with you. Correct. Subduing him was far easier than subduing you. Kael said flatly. Being a dog is something he's indeed better at than me. Ignoring the mockery, Chu Kuang stepped closer. Tell me your secrets, without reservation. I can give you one more chance to submit. Kael looked at him as if he were an idiot. Have you beaten me? Chu Kuang sighed, his killing intent no longer hid behind pretense. If you can't be subdued, then you must be destroyed. You are too dangerous. The invisible maw fully materialized, its dark fang phantom aimed straight at Kael. Actually, Kael suddenly spoke with dead seriousness, have you ever considered that you might die here today too? Chu Kuang smiled with utter confidence. No one can kill. His words cut off, his expression twisted in alarm. A half-step transcendent aura was hurtling toward them at a terrifying speed. Chu Kuang's skin drew tight, his hair lifting against an unseen wind. How is this possible? Where did he come from? You have plenty of secrets yourself. To detect him before I did. Chu Kuang stared fixedly at Kael, his words grinding past clenched teeth. You dare set me up. Set you up, Kael narrowed his eyes. Don't forget, you were the one who blocked my path. You brought this on yourself. Laughter rang out. Nero's junks landed abruptly, clapping his hands with a laugh. Not bad, not bad. He wore a genial expression, his gaze sliding between the two. You can't blame him. If you hadn't blocked his path, you wouldn't have run into me. Had you not met me, you could have avoided this death calamity today. Since you planted the cause, you should swallow the consequence. He stopped short, focusing on Chu Kuang with a quiet ha. A faint light drifted around Chu Kuang. In Nero's junks' eyes, it carried an unfathomable depth. You're not simple. Nero's junks' smile vanished. His expression turned solemn. Compared to this brat, you're probably not lacking much. He clicked his tongue and shook his head. I never imagined that in my absence, the northern territory of the eastern wastes would produce some decent juniors.
Chu Kuang ignored his musings. Who exactly are you? How did you get in? Nero's Jonks shook his head. His gaze settled on the two of them, voice sinking low, as if mourning something precious about to shatter. Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is this. The northern territory of the eastern wastes two great prodigies, two rising stars. Both will die by my hand today. Chu Kuang's heart clenched. His feet shifted on instinct, ready to bolt. Run, Kael sneered. You think you can run. Before the words faded, Nero's Jonks flickered, reappearing directly in front of Chu Kuang. His smile stayed soft.
Young man, you can't escape.
Take a lesson from that boy over there. Learn to accept your fate. Sometimes that's the only way to grow. Don't you think?
Right. Kael nodded hard. Accept your fate.
With a sharp hiss, Kael's entire body blurred into an afterimage and burst forward. Nero's Jonks shook his head, sighing. Why won't you listen? His sleeve whipped out. The strike hadn't landed yet, but the wind pressure crushed down like a collapsing sky. Kael's heart hammered. He skidded to a stop, threw himself sideways with everything he had.
Boom!
A crater more than 10 zhang wide erupted where he just stood. Dirt and stone sprayed upward, red soil spattering down like rain. Kael leaned on his sword, vomiting fresh blood. His protective spirit light guttered like a candle in a storm, his body on the edge of breaking apart. Nero's Jonks sighed again, a flicker of honest regret in his eyes. I understand you geniuses. You think destiny tips the scales in your favor, that the great Tao watches over you. Even when you're one breath from death, you still believe a miracle will land on your head, just like I did back then. Shame none of the geniuses who thought that way ever lived. Chu Kuang's face darkened. You're really going to attack me? Nero's Jonks ignored him, turning to Kael with a smile so bright it nearly glowed. For old time's sake, I'll give you a special treat. Kael struggled to lift his head, blood frothing at the corner of his mouth. Let me go. Of course not. Nero's Jonks' smile deepened. I find you more agreeable, so I've decided to let you live a little longer. I'll kill him first. How about that? Fine. Kael panted, nodding. Go ahead. Don't just stand there. Chu Kuang's expression stayed blank. A reason. Give me a reason to strike. Sorry. Nero's Jonks stepped closer, his tone almost lazy. I already said everything I needed to say to him. I'm not repeating myself. You can just die ignorant. Chu Kuang suddenly shook his head, his voice eerily calm. So be it. Since you're courting death, don't blame this saint. Nero's Jonks' brows snapped together. What do you mean? You call yourself this saint? Chu Kuang let out a breath, a sound rising from some unfathomable depth. I never thought the backup I prepared would get used on you first. You should feel proud.
Will you,
The secret realm shuddered as if an invisible giant hand had seized it. The whole space quaked. Fine black cracks spidered through the void like a shattering mirror. A low, nearly silent hum bored straight into the soul, wiping the mind blank. A crushing, overwhelming pressure slammed down. Just a stray wisp of it washed over Kael, and he spewed another mouthful of blood. His body flattened into the ground as if stomped by an unseen foot, bones cracking with audible snaps under the residual force. Blood bubbles at his lips burst in silence, splattering the red earth. Every trace of ease crumbled from Nero's Jonks' face. His pupils shrank to pinpricks, the muscles in his face twitched out of control, a rock cracked under his foot. He stumbled back several steps, voice nearly shattering. This is the aura of a sacred weapon. Who the hell are you? Sacred weapon, an artifact steeped in the Tao charm of a Saint Realm cultivator for ages. Its power dwarfed any ordinary treasure. Chu Kuang clasped his hands behind his back, slow and deliberate. Dark light surged behind him, coalescing into a blurred, saintly silhouette. Ancient runes streamed deep in his eyes, as if another pair of eyes stared coldly from a primordial era. You didn't really think, Chu Kuang smiled, that this saint would stupidly live a second life without making any preparations. Nero's Jonks' eyes bulged, like he'd just been clubbed from behind. You're a saint's reincarnation. Correct. Chu Kuang's tone held no warmth. Guess again. With your cultivation, can you block a single strike from the Saint Realm? Block. A cold sweat instantly slicked Nero's Jonks' forehead. Beads the size of beans slid down his cheeks, dripping onto the scorched red earth and hissing into thin white vapor. Block my ass. A strike from the Saint Realm blocking was fantasy. He wouldn't even get the chance to flee. Nero's Jonks' expression shifted in an instant. He pulled himself together, voice thick with sincerity. Young brother, let's talk this through. No need to act rashly. This whole thing was just a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Chu Kuang sneered. You didn't say that when you were about to strike. Nero's Jonks waved his hands frantically. That was then, this is now. If you'd revealed your identity earlier, I would never have made a move. Seems you really do fear my backup. Fear and Nero's Junks nodded openly, his face stacking layers of sheer survival instinct. Of course I'm afraid. Let's be real. There's no reason for us to fight to the death. You're a saint's reincarnation, but backups like this can't be endless, right? Why waste it on me?
A half-step transcendent, in exchange for a Saint Realm strike. No matter how you calculate it, young brother, you'd be taking a massive loss.
Nero's Junks twisted to look at Kael. You tell me, doesn't that make sense?
Kael caught his breath, blood still at the corner of his mouth. You're both fatty, but you are 100 times more shameless than him. Shame and Nero's Junks raised an eyebrow. What the hell is that? If I still worried about shame, I'd have died decades ago. You're just too young.
Ju Kwang stayed silent.
Nero's Junks wasn't wrong, the backup wasn't infinite. Before his reincarnation, the method sealed inside the sacred weapon only gave him 3 uses.
Each one spent was gone forever. After the third, the greatest safeguard of Chu Kwang's second life would vanish completely.
Saint Realm measures carried far more weight as a threat than as an actual blow.
Seeing Chu Kwang's expression ease, Nero's Junks edged half a step closer. Young brother, think it over carefully. There's truly no irreconcilable grudge between us. Everything I did was because...
Nero's Junks quickly recounted the earlier events, then let out a long sigh.
If they find out I caused this mess and got their most valued junior killed, they'll hunt me to the ends of the earth. I had no choice but to take this desperate route.
There's still some divine quintessence left. If you need it, I'll fetch it for you right now.
No rush, Chu Kwang shook his head.
It'll all be mine sooner or later anyway.
Nero's Junks paused, then you.
I have a suggestion. Chu Kwang fixed his gaze on Nero's Junks. Submit to me, or rather, let's cooperate. What do you say?
Submit, cooperate.
Exactly, Chu Kwang nodded. Strip it all down, whether it's becoming a holy son or devouring divine power. Your only goal is to step into Transcendent. I can give you that too. The Transcendence realm is just the beginning. If you help me accomplish great things, the Saint realm might not be out of reach. And not a single whisper of what happened here will ever leave my lips. Nero's Junks' eyes kindled with sudden fire. Truly, you mean it. Naturally, Chu Kwang stood with hands clasped behind him, the sacred shadow behind him dimming its eerie glow, the runes in his eyes slowly receding. In all my life, this saint has never spoken a false word, and besides... Chu Kwang swept a cool glance over Nero's Junks. Do you think you have any other choice?